Hello, this is Gradye Parsons, and this is our continuing series on the Book of Order, looking at the foundations of polity, which are the front part or the first section of our Constitution as we find in the Book of Order as it was adopted in revised fashion of the summer, July of 2011. Today we're looking at F10303, the Notes of the Reformed Church, where it says, "Where Christ is, there is the true church. Since the earliest days of the Reformation, Reformed Christians have marked the presence of the true church wherever the Word of God is truly preached and heard, the sacraments are rightly administered, and ecclesiastical discipline is uprightly ministered." And this is all rooted in the 18th chapter of the Scots Confession, which I won't read entirely for you today. Now, the original marks of the church from Calvin were the first two: the Word of God truly preached and heard, and the sacraments are rightly administered. And the Scottish Church added the ecclesiastical discipline is rightly administered. These three basic points are sort of the three legs of the stool of basically what Reformed people have understood to mean church. Now, does this mean that other churches don't honor these particular elements? No, it doesn't. You'll find good preaching and the regard for preaching in lots of churches. You'll find the sacraments, how sacraments are administered is a high value in lots of churches. You'll find discipline is an important matter in lots of churches. But historically for the Reformed churches, as we grew out of the Reformation experience some 500 years ago, these were the three things that really marked ours. And what marked them kind of uniquely is that they were really the responsibility not of the minister alone, but really as the minister with the elders, the session or of the church, or the kirk as we say in Scotland. So it was a group. There was a group of people who came together who were part of a worshiping community, part of a family of faith, who set out to make sure that these three main elements were part of the church. And so for the Presbyterian Church, the long history of the Presbyterian Church, preaching the Word, proclamation of the Word is highly important. It's the first thing on this list. So even when we have a service which is focused around the table, the Lord's table about baptism, there has to be a word of preaching that goes with it as we try to educate our souls and educate our hearts about what these things mean. It's not just a matter of giving elements, but it's a matter of giving information. Even though we have different degrees of how we celebrate the Lord's Supper, some churches do it in a very formal way, some churches do it in a very simple way, sometimes we do it in a very informal way when we take communion home to people in their homes. Still, it's been important to us that it be done rightly, that there be a word with it, that prayers are done with it, that we use the elements, that there's an engagement by people that are involved. In the same way with discipline, and that in our life as a community of faith, the discipline doesn't mean that we're cracking the whip on everybody, but it does mean that we care about each other, that we're a covenant community and we've agreed to live in a certain way. And part of that, the role of elders, ruling elders and teaching elders, is to help people with their lives as they live with each other. I'm in churches all the time, and it's the big discipline issues that we talk about, the controversial ones, are really not the ones where people are being affected the most. Where they're being affected the most is how they're just trying to get through their day. People that are losing their jobs, people that are losing their homes, people that are having trouble with their kids, people that are having trouble with their marriages. Those things are part of the discipline of the church, in that the people in the church are supposed to care about those. So it's really a pastoral issue of how we care about each other and how we try to nurture this life we have together as a community. All, again, based on how we have the sacraments together and how we hear the Word together. So the question I want you to ask in your church is, are these three historic marks of the Reformed Church, how do they side up against your church? How does your church measure up against these three historic marks of the church? Preaching, the sacraments, and discipline rightly exercised. How does your church measure up against that? Is preaching really something that's a strong value in your church that people are experiencing? Are the sacraments or something that's engaging in the church? And as a life of a covenant community, are you caring for each other? Are you looking out for each other? Are you encouraging each other? Are you nurturing each other in the way to be? These are the three things that traditionally marked a Reformed church. And these are still three goals that should mark our church as we move on into this ever-evolving, ever-emerging church that God is creating us to be. So think about those things, and we'll talk again. Thanks.